Welcome back to 3D animation. Today we are continuing with more lessons from the graph editor. As a reminder, to access your graph editor, make sure you go up to Workspace up here in the top right and choose Animation, and that will load up so that you can see the whole graph editor. Often if you have dual monitors, you can set up the graph editor to take up the whole screen on one of your monitors and then view it on the other. But for this purpose, since I'm screen capturing, we're going to keep it on one screen. So a couple things I haven't gone over. Just off the bat, I always like to show people just some of the more options that we have down here, both in our buttons on here and then also in our various menu items within the graph editor, some pinpointed stuff. So say I'm like zoomed way out or I'm zoomed way in on an animation. These buttons here help me kind of frame. So I can frame a whole selection. So I had my P sphere, this is from the bouncing ball technique that I showed you guys a while back in an earlier lesson. At any point, I can click on this sphere and just know that if I click this button here, which is fit selection in all panels, it's going to fit it in. So even if I'm like zoomed way out, I can click it and it's going to kind of fit to the full width, or I can zoom way in on something on a particular keyframe. Let's see if I'm like down here and I'm working on this particular keyframe and I want to come back out, I can frame the whole selection again. So I just like to show everybody that one. And then you can just show frame within the playback range. Like right now, I have a playback range of 120 frames, which I designated down here. So this will frame out to that whole playback range just to kind of show me my whole timeline. If I had this set to say just 40 and I hit that button, then again, it would be kind of similar to framing that particular selection. Or, I could increase this to 500 and then hit that button, and it's going to frame all the way out and show me the whole animation, which is, again, kind of a convenient thing. Sometimes you want to jump out, see the whole thing, come back in again. So let's put that back down to the 40 range and zoom in on that. Okay, and then last, there's this option for center around the current time. So if I click that one, it's going to kind of center up so that the center of my window is wherever my current cursor is. If I moved it over here, then that would become the center. Now keep in mind, this area over here on the left, these are actually negative keyframe values. So that's like 0 to 1 there, and I can move that if I want to. I can move, whoops, sorry, I wanted to grab that. I can move that back and include negative keyframe numbers if I wanted to. I don't recommend it, but you always want it to start on 0. For some reason, I had that one on 1 by accident. But I can at least bump that back, and then anything from here on before that is going to be 0. And I can always just navigate the way I would with if I hold down Command or Control and use my middle mouse button, I can still drag left, down, up, down, left, right, up, down. I can still zoom in and out this way as well. So just some convenient buttons here to know about. I hadn't gone over them previously, so I wanted you to understand just this fit selection, frame back play range, and then center view. All right. Next thing I want to show you is motion trails. So obviously I have a kind of a cool motion. This is the bouncing ball, boom, boom, boom. And it's all represented right now through my keyframes here that are in the graph editor. So I can see the up and down value. As I move up in a value there, my value is, I'm on keyframe 18. I'm sorry, no, I'm not. Am I on free? I didn't think I was. Sorry, let me put it here, 15. Let's go to 15. Whoop. Oh, I'm sorry, I had that particular keyframe selected. I didn't realize that at the time. So anyway, if I click on a keyframe, that's on key 18, and then its value is negative 11.86, versus if I click on this one here, there we go, I'm on keyframe 24, and I'm on 1.67, right? So these are all ways to kind of identify the value, but if I want to see it visually, I can turn on what's called motion trails. And to do this, I come up here. Once I'm in the workspace, that's the animation workspace, I get this animation tab. And at any point, I can choose my sphere here, and I can come over here and I can turn on motion trails. And this actually gives me in my viewport a visual of kind of like what the motion of my animation looks like, which is really cool. It actually has turned it into, you see there's like motion trail handles here, which you can actually click on these points and get the values, which is really cool. So this is like keyframe 10, 15, 19, 24, and so forth as you move through it. Keyframe 29, 34 to 36. 34 and 36 are kind of like right next to each other. So anyway, it just gives you this like visual way that you can kind of see how the bounce of your animation is going, which is really cool. So as I go along there, Now if I change these values, unfortunately, I don't think the values change with me. So you don't exactly, you have to kind of create another motion one. And the same thing, if I move, I can actually select these. Oh, and it does actually move with it. So there we go. So that's kind of cool. So I can actually click on these guys and move my animation around and kind of see how the values change. It just gives you another way to be able to edit your animation visually. You're going to notice this is how they have it in After Effects. You have like both the keyframes and the ability to kind of like shape your animation in some interesting ways. So you can see the overall arc of it and adjust things as we go, which is really, really cool. So just another way to kind of work on that, move things around, like visually if I want to see this. Watch doing it the perspective view. I recommend doing it like a front or a side view just so you can really kind of see how they're moving. But again, I can really determine maybe I want that to bounce right on the ground, or maybe I don't. Maybe I want this one to come up a little bit higher before it comes back down. And you know, I can adjust things accordingly as we go, which is really cool. So just another way to do that, and like I said, that's right up here, Add Motion Trail button. All right. I think we went over this in an earlier lesson, but I just want you to understand we can copy and paste keyframes. So if I'm at the end of my animation and I'm right about here where it ends, and then, you know, obviously I think the only thing that happens is it expands back upwards again. I could grab these keyframes, those specific ones. I could copy them. I did Command C, or I can come over here and copy. And then I could come further down, say to keyframe 44, and paste them. And you'll see it just kind of maintains its position and it just holds there again, right? So, you know, and then I could come back here and copy these earlier keyframes and go beyond that and paste them again. Whoop. Move these back a little bit. There we go. Oops, sorry, they were a little bit further down. I didn't realize I had gone so far there. Let me undo those a little bit. Bring those back a little bit. I grabbed a little bit more than I wanted to, so I'm going to copy and paste. I think what's happening here is earlier when I had clicked on paste, I wanted to show you that there's some paste options. If you click on this little box next to paste, you actually have paste key options. And it's still remembering last time that I had said make 3 copies of this keyframe and then offset them by 5 frames each. So you can actually copy groups of keyframes and make it go over and over and over again and make copies of it. Unfortunately, it remembers that every time you do it too. So if I wanted it to kind of like do this little bounce, so I'll move this out of the way so we can see what we're looking at, but like basically at the end here, it's just kind of going up and down, right? So I could say copy these two. So I'm going to copy, Command C or Control C, and say I want to copy that 3 times, and then I want to put 5 frames between each one and then paste it. You'll see now I have it up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, and there's 5 frames between each one. So it's kind of cool. You can make a little repeated motion. It's just sitting there kind of bobbing up and down afterwards, which is really cool. So all sorts of options here on what you want to do. Obviously, you can play around, but I wanted you to understand that there's also that paste additional option. Now, if you want to paste again in the future, make sure you turn the copies off and the offset off just to go back to usual, because otherwise it's going to keep doing that offset copying and pasting each time that you do it, right? So it's kind of a cool way to be able to continue your animation. Or maybe you just want to have it do the whole thing over again and you want to copy and paste it, right? All right, I'm going to undo all that, get rid of those extra copies. There we go. One thing I wasn't showing you guys before, you know, sometimes when you click on a particular keyframe and you want to move it around, you move it, but then it ends up going up and down in value while you're just trying to move it around time-wise. So if you want to hold it in a specific direction, hold down Shift and then click on it, and you'll see it actually locks. Even if I move my mouse up and down, it'll still lock. So I'm only changing its time value and not its like position value, which is the up and down in the graph editor. So that's really helpful, right? And same thing, if I only want to go up and down in value but not left and right in timing, if I shift click and click up, you get the up arrow up and down, and it's locking it to that frame. Even though I'm going left and right, it's only going up and down. So shift click can really help. When I first, it's like, which way do you want to go arrow wise? Up, down, left, right. As soon as I go in a direction, then it's locked to that left, right. I can't go up and down until I let go, and then I shift click again, and now I'm locked to up or down. So shift clicking on these keys is really going to help you a ton as well. And that's just, again, we're talking about the value of a key, right? So if I go to the left, my value changes, right? Now I'm at like keyframe 28. Let me undo that. And if I go up with it, obviously I'm changing the like position value of that. Now, because I am playing with, I believe I'm with the scale X. Yes, I'm playing with just scale. Nope, I was actually playing with rotate X. Then I'm just playing the value of the rotation, right? Or translate X. Actually, let me click on that, translate X, which is just moving in position as we go. So translate Y is a better one. There we go. So as I go up and down in that, I'm making it actually go higher or lower. Whoop. So if I click on that guy and move up, see how he's actually going up and down or below, depending on that value. So I can type this in. I can say, you know, I want it to go specifically to 2, or I want it to specifically go to 2.5, right? And you can set exactly where you want it to go. And same thing here, if I don't want it on keyframe 29, I want it on keyframe 30, then I bump it over and it's on 30. And that relates all back to that shift click. Again, now if I hold shift and click, I can say no, go to 29, or no, go to 32, depending on where I want to go with it. And same thing, shift click but up, and now I'm changing the value as I go, right? All right, just trying to be very clear about that, about how the time versus value and then shift clicking up or down affects those. I want to show you the insert key tool, another really great tool here. So if you click on keys from the menu here and choose the insert keyframe tool, I can come around anywhere and add keyframes to any values that I want as I go. So I was on translate Y there, but you know, I can come in here and click. Sorry, it's bouncing out and showing me the whole thing as I go, but either way, I'm still can click on that. And if I actually click with that tool and do the middle click drag, I can decide where I want it to click along the timing there, and then kind of release, and then it'll click. So it's sort of like a preview of like, oh, nope, I want to get it right there. And it goes evenly between keyframes and then drops it. So depending on which one you're trying to click on at any given time. If I click on the whole thing, obviously I can drag them anywhere. I can click here, I can click there, anywhere I want. And so depending on what I'm doing, I was doing it on rotate X. So this insert keyframe tool, whoop, I think I did on the wrong one there. So I clicked on, there we go, and right here. I tend to like that middle click, that I can like pick a position and then release it to actually drop it. Allows me to be just a little bit more accurate about where I'm going with my insert keyframes. So a great tool there. Now let's talk about scaling keys. So one of the first things that I can do, I'm going to click off of that tool because it's active right now. So I'm going to click on my arrow tool. So say I'm on rotate X again, okay? So sorry, let me get back on rotate X. One thing, actually, just to isolate this in the future, if you want to isolate just one particular element, you can use this pin tool here. And then even if I click off of my sphere, I'll always get just rotate X because I know that that's happening a lot, right? It's rotating a lot. Vice versa, if I click on that and get rid of that, and then actually click on my sphere, I could do it to my translate Y as well. So I could pin that. And then even if I click off my sphere on something else, it'll always show up here as an option. It'll pin it so I can compare one motion to another. It kind of like locks it in place, which is really nice, right? So as I'm working in here, if I want to go ahead back to my keys and insert keys, I can just keep that isolated and only work with that and not have that kind of clicking happening where I was seeing all the other values on the sphere. So it allows you to kind of isolate it, but also keep it kind of pinned up so it's easy to access it in the future, right? So I've added all these keys. Now what if I want to scale them, right? So we're going to go ahead and scale these keys. I'm going to go ahead and grab a whole bunch of them here. There's a lot of different ways to do this, right? So first thing I could do is actually hit the scale key on my keyboard, the letter R, and then I can middle click and drag them. So just middle click, you can see they're going left and right. If I middle click and go up, I can scale. So I'm doing time versus value, right? Which is really cool. It's just kind of like that same way of the shifting, but again, middle click left, and I can scale these all as a group from wherever I'm clicking from. So they'll go from the middle, or they'll go from the end. So it depends on where you're trying to scale from, right? So you can see I actually get a little marker line there that's showing where I'm scaling from, which is really cool. So again, I'm just middle clicking, and then I'm scaling from that point that I'm clicking at on my keyframe. So that's really important to know, right? Let me unscale these. If I wanted to scale from the beginning, then I better go to that like beginning of my animation and scale from right there, and then I could scale out to the right or bring it in, right? But if on the end of it I want to scale the other direction, then I click there and I can scale left back to right. So again, lots of different options. So if I want to scale from the bottom upwards, or I want to scale from the top upwards, I have a lot of different ways of doing that depending on where I click from. So again, that was really easy. All I had to do is select the keyframes that I want to scale. They're going all over the place now, but I can grab all those, and then like I said, use the R to choose the scale tool, and then just click and drag left or right again to get a time value scale, or up and down to get an actual, like for this, in this case it's the Y value that I'm adjusting, right? The translate Y. I'm going to undo all that because I scaled the heck out of those. I think that's pretty good. And but there's lots of other ways to scale, which is really cool. There's these transformation tools that I wanted you to be aware of as well. So let's go ahead and go to Graph Editor menu, and we're going to go to the Edit panel and Transformation Tools. And that's actually a Scale Keys tool. It's just like what I just did, just a regular scale tool. But I can come in there, and again, I can choose all those keyframes, and then I can scale left to right. So either way, you can choose it from there, or you can just choose like the Scale tool R. But there's some other cool ones under here. Under Transformation Tool, there's also this like Region Key tool. If I turn that, I get this like cool like gray box that shows the region of my selection. And then I can scale from the right side by dragging that bar, or from the left side from dragging that bar, or vertically, again, top down or bottom up. So again, just kind of a neat way to work. Any selections I make now, little micro scales, is going to give me this ability to kind of stretch out or scale the values in whatever direction I want to go. And that's just active as long as I leave it active. So there's that one. And then the other one that I like to do is, again, under Edit, and this is the Transformation Tools. There's also this, so you have that Region tool. You can also, oh yeah, Edit and just Scale. So if I just take these, I can do it numerically. So I can scale all of these and just go to Edit, Scale, and pull up the box. And I can say numerically, like, let's cut the value of this in half. By default, it'll be set to 1. I had just done this a little bit ago, so I'll do like 0.5 on my time scale, scale the keys, and it just shrunk it down by exactly half. So from a value of 1 to a value of 0.5. So that's just how to do that under Edit and Scale. I'll undo that. And then my other way that I could do this is select those guys again. I still have that Region tool active. I think I actually have to turn, I might have to turn that off by clicking it again. I can't remember exactly how to turn it off. I think I can just go to regular Scale tool. There we go. And then I can also do this Retime tool. You can click these points, and basically I can create little marker points, and then I can scale within those markers, which is really cool. And I can scale these along in all these really interesting ways, right? So the Retime tool is really nice. Like I said, I can kind of click along and create different markers, and then if I don't like a marker, I can click on it again, right? So let me grab that tool. Sorry, it's not quite working the way it was before. I was able to just click before. I'm not quite sure why it's doing that. Let's try it again. Transportation tool, Retime tool. Oh, it's double click to add multiple. So sorry. One there, one there, one there. I'll put a little one here. So you can put in all these markers by double clicking, and then you can adjust between them and just scale that region, but it sort of like flexes everything to the left of that as well. So anything that's adjacent to it, it's going to scale left and right. So just like a really interesting way to kind of pinpoint and adjust your motions using this Retime tool. So I can speed up certain areas and slow down others. And then, like I said, you can click this little X to get rid of those little bars if you don't want them. All right, I've already showed you the pinning tool, which we've been doing. We had that pinned. At any point I can unpin it, and then my sphere will go back to not being pinned. I'm going to get off that retime tool here. And last thing I want to show you is these infinity cycles that I can work with. So let me do a whole bunch of undoing here. Let's move these back, because I want my original animation back. Okay, I'm going to go back as far as I can. There we go. Pretty close to it. I think that's close enough. All right, so now I've got my animation, bounce, bounce, bounce. What if I want to loop that animation, right? Well, there's this really cool way of doing that, and it's called using an infinity cycle. So I can select a group of my animations. So again, I can choose my whole sphere here and grab all those keyframes. And if I go to curves and I go to post infinity, I can add a cycle here. And I already had it turned on, but if you go to view, you have to make sure infinity is turned on to view it. And if I turn on infinity, you'll see it has just repeated my cycle over and over and over into infinity. And if I actually play that, so let me stretch this out so we can see the whole thing. You'll see it's going to do the bounce over and over and over and over, right? Cool, especially if you have a looping motion, you have like a character walking or something like that. So now in this case, it's kind of weird because it jumps back, right? It's not ideal. So let me undo this. And instead, I can do what's called an oscillation. So if I go to view again, and then curves and post infinity, I can oscillate that. And it's going to go back and forth now, which is really cool. It goes to the beginning and then back again. So watch this. Bounce forward, bounce back. Bounce forward, bounce back. And I can have this going on into the entire, it just goes on and on for the entire length of my animation, whatever I have currently set. If you're wondering what the pre is, that takes you into the negative value. Again, I'm not recommending you ever work on the negative keyframes, but if you wanted to, you can go to a pre-infinity cycle. And again, I could go oscillate and have it go that way as well. Again, we don't really need it. And because we're kind of, looping from 0 to 200, but if for some reason you're working in the negatives, maybe you might want to set it up in a pre as well, and then have it work from all the way back there. So a really neat way to have kind of a forward, back, looping animation going on. All right, I'm going to undo all that. I'm going to frame just to bring this all up again. Last thing I want to show you, and we'll come back to this again in a future lesson, it's called baking your keys. Most of the time you're going to bake your keys when you're using dynamic simulations, particle effects, anything that instead of keyframing the animation, you're using code or dynamic systems to create bouncing cycles that are using deflectors and all sorts of like gravity forces and dynamic cycles and things like that, which we are going to get to. Sometimes you want to like lock those into place so you don't always have to go back. And you want to turn them into keyframes, well, you would bake those animations. You can do the same thing here, though. Like I can take my P-sphere and I can take all these keyframes. At any point, I can come up here to, sorry, I always forget where it is. 1 second. I believe it is, there it is. Under curves, I can bake a channel. So I can bake this. And you'll see it has turned all of those splines and tangents that we were working with into individual keyframes. So now like every frame, there is now a keyframe set all the way through. This does allow you to make like little micro adjustments, but man, it also takes a lot of time to make like big adjustments now, where before I could do that with just a couple of tangents. Now I have to adjust like every single keyframe if I want to adjust that curve. So it's cool if you need to get down to this like little nitty gritty and you maybe want to introduce some little like wobbles and there's just something that you need to be able to adjust at a micro level, then baking that particular channel is going to really help you. But I want to show you that's always an option in there to bake the channel. I'm going to undo that. Personally, I'd rather work with tangents that then I can like, adjust the curves on and do these smoothing effects and let it fill in the tweening in between. But at any point, if you ever want to take a specific channel or all the channels, and again, you want to come up to keys, I'm sorry, I just did it again. Curves, and go to Bake Channel. You can do that there, and you can bake that particular channel, and you'll see all the keyframes that were added in there, right? So, not all of them. I only picked that particular channel that time, which was the rotate X, and so now I have a keyframe at every single key in the, or every single frame in the animation. And like I said, this is definitely going to come in handy as we move forward in the future here, and you know, really add some more complexity to our animation. Okay, I'm going to go back to where I had it before. There we go. Excellent. All right, that's it for now, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and stop, and please do get in touch if you have any questions. Hopefully this gets you really, really comfortable now between my first big lesson, my first 2 lessons on the graph editor, and now this one, of all the different tools that you have to your advantage. There's still more in here. We'll get to them as we keep moving forward with more animation lessons. All right, thanks for tuning in.